Synopsis: when Ethan saves the life of a dying alien friend, he inherits far more than he bargained for, a family of alien women bound to him by an ancient custom. In a galaxy where interspecies relations are fraught with political intrigue, Ethan must navigate his unexpected role as a husband to 3 alien sisters while unraveling the secrets of their people. Opening scene: A Promise in Blood. Ethan Bell had always been a drifter. As a scavenger in the outer reaches of the galaxy, he'd seen his fair share of danger, but he'd never expected to become the accidental savior of an alien warrior prince. Crashed on a desolate moon, Ethan pulled the prince, HFY Car, from the wreckage of his ship. Though gravely injured, HFY Car's gratitude was boundless. In his final moments, HFY Car pressed a glowing sigil into Ethan's hand, a ceremonial act Ethan thought was a gesture of thanks. "It's yours now," HFY Car rasped.
"They're yours now.
"Protect them, my sisters, my family." Ethan had no idea what that meant until 3 very tall, very imposing alien women arrived days later, looking for their lost brother. The sisters of HFY Car. HFY Car's sisters, Lyra, Kalis, and Zephyra, were stunning in a way that defied human standards. Their skin shimmered like polished obsidian, and their silver-white hair flowed like living light. They were from the Travari race, a proud and noble species bound by ancient laws of kinship. To Ethan's shock, the sigil HFY Car had given him wasn't just a token. It was a mark of inheritance. By saving HFY Car and accepting the sigil, Ethan had unknowingly taken on his Connor vow, a sacred duty to care for HFY Car's family. In Travari law, care meant marriage. "You are now bonded to us by blood and law," Lyra, the eldest sister, explained, her voice sharp yet dignified. "This is not negotiable." Navigating alien marriage. Ethan wasn't prepared for interspecies matrimony. The Travari sisters weren't just wives in name, they were warriors, scholars, and diplomats, each with their own strong personality. Lyra, the eldest, was fiercely protective and a master tactician. She treated Ethan with a mix of skepticism and grudging respect. Kalis, the middle sister, was softer-spoken but wielded a sharp wit. She seemed oddly fascinated by human culture, often asking Ethan awkward questions. Zephyra, the youngest, was a rebellious firebrand with a penchant for weapons and trouble. Their culture demanded Ethan prove himself worthy of their bond, which involved a series of grueling trials, from surviving combat simulations to mastering alien etiquette. The rising threat. As Ethan adjusted to his new reality, he uncovered a sinister plot against the Travari family. HFY Car had been targeted for assassination by rival factions seeking to destabilize the Travari's hold on galactic politics. The sisters revealed that Ethan's unexpected bond with them had created a loophole in their enemies' plans. As an outsider, he was immune to the political traps laid for the Travari. But that also made him a target. The bond strengthens. Through battles, close calls, and late-night conversations, Ethan and the sisters began to understand one another. What had started as a forced arrangement evolved into a genuine partnership. Lyra began to trust Ethan's instincts, seeing him as more than just an accidental husband. Kalis taught Ethan the intricacies of Travari diplomacy, impressed by his resourcefulness. Zephyra became Ethan's sparring partner, pushing him to become stronger while secretly admiring his resilience. Ethan, in turn, learned the value of their bond. The Travari didn't see marriage as a mere union. It was a pact of loyalty, strength, and shared purpose. The final battle. When the rival faction launched an all-out assault on the Travari homeworld, Ethan found himself leading a ragtag force to defend his new family. With Lyra strategizing, Kalis negotiating alliances, and Zephyra fighting at his side, they turned the tide of battle. Ethan's ingenuity and human determination became the stuff of legend among the Travari. He wasn't just their Connerval, he was their champion. Epilogue. A new beginning. With the threat defeated, Ethan finally embraced his role as a husband to the Travari sisters. Though their relationship was unconventional by human standards, it was built on mutual respect and trust. Together, they forged a new legacy, proving that even in the vastness of space, love and loyalty could transcend species and tradition. Chapter 1. The Unexpected Gift. Jonathan Drake wasn't having a particularly remarkable day when the message arrived. The sun had barely crept above the horizon, spilling golden light across the arid Martian landscape. Jonathan's small dome-shaped home, nestled within the confines of New Chryse Colony, buzzed with a quiet hum of life support systems. He stirred his coffee, a bland synthetic brew, and stared at his tablet screen. The monotony of maintenance reports and cargo logs stretched before him like an unending desert. Then the alert came. A soft chime, accompanied by a red blinking icon on the tablet. He tapped it with little enthusiasm. The words on the screen made him blink in disbelief. Interstellar Bequest Notification. Subject: Farlock of the Terran Clan. Dear Jonathan Drake, in accordance with Terran inheritance laws, you have been named as the principal beneficiary of Farlock's estate. Details are as follows. Estate: assets totaling 6.2 million credits. Obligation: guardianship of Farlock's three sisters, as outlined in Article 12, Section 8 of Terran Clan Law. Consequence of refusal: forfeiture of all assets and punitive fines as mandated by Terran custom. Jonathan's hands tightened around the tablet. What the hell? Farlock had been an alien, a Terran, and one of Jonathan's closest friends. They had met during an off-world mining expedition years ago. Farlock had been an oddball, even among his kind, a towering figure with shimmering blue scales and a penchant for human culture. They'd bonded over late-night card games and shared stories. And now, it seemed, Farlock's death had left Jonathan with an unexpected inheritance and an even more unexpected complication. Jonathan reread the message, his heart sinking. He wasn't well-versed in Terran law, but he knew enough to realize that obligations were taken very seriously. Ignoring this could spark an interstellar diplomatic incident. Worse, he'd risk tarnishing Farlock's name. He sighed and tapped the accept button. Chapter 2. The Sisters Arrive. The ship arrived 2 days later. Jonathan waited at the landing pad, his boots scuffing the metal floor as he shifted nervously. He didn't know much about Terran customs, but he knew the sisters would expect proper hospitality. Unfortunately, his home wasn't exactly suited for alien royalty. A low hum signaled the ship's descent. The craft was sleek and black, its surface shimmering like liquid obsidian. As it landed, a ramp extended, and 3 figures emerged. Jonathan's jaw dropped. The Terran sisters were unlike anything he had expected. Each stood over 7 feet tall, their bodies covered in the same iridescent blue scales as Farlock's. They moved with a grace that belied their size, their golden eyes scanning the surroundings with curiosity and an air of authority. The eldest stepped forward. Her voice was a melodic hum, the universal translator rendering her words into English. Jonathan Drake. I am Sayalina, eldest of the Terran sisters. We are grateful for your acceptance of Farlock's will. Jonathan swallowed hard. Welcome. I'll do my best to make you comfortable. Sayalina inclined her head. Behind her, the second sister stepped forward. She was slightly shorter, her scales tinged with green along the edges. Her smile was warmer, less formal. I am Vessa. Farlock spoke highly of you. The youngest sister lingered at the top of the ramp, her golden eyes wide with curiosity. She darted forward suddenly, stopping just inches from Jonathan. I'm Ziri, she said, her voice bright and eager. You're shorter than I imagined. Jonathan blinked. Thanks. Ziri grinned. That wasn't a compliment. Sayalina cleared her throat. Ziri, manners. Ziri rolled her eyes, but stepped back. Jonathan exhaled slowly. Hosting 3 alien sisters was going to be challenging enough without a firecracker like Ziri in the mix. Let's get you settled in, he said, gesturing toward his home. The walk back was awkward. Jonathan's house was modest by human standards, a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a cramped living area. He winced as the sisters ducked under the low doorframe, their large frames making the space feel even smaller. This will suffice, Sayalina said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "We will adapt." Jonathan rubbed the back of his neck. "I'll see about expanding the living space. In the meantime, I'll take the couch." Vessa's eyes softened. "You're kind, Jonathan." Farlock chose well. He felt a pang of guilt. Kindness wasn't the reason he'd accepted the arrangement. It was obligation, pure and simple. But as he looked at the three sisters, he realized he couldn't let them down. Farlock had trusted him, and that trust was a bond he couldn't break. Over the following days, Jonathan learned more about the sisters. Sayalina was the protector, a fierce warrior who had served in the Terran military. Vessa was the diplomat, skilled in languages and negotiation. Ziri, the youngest, was a scientist with a penchant for mischief. They settled into an uneasy routine. Sayalina took charge of security, scanning the colony's perimeter daily. Vessa busied herself with studying human culture, poring over Jonathan's collection of ancient Earth literature. Ziri tinkered with everything, much to Jonathan's dismay. One evening, as they sat around the table sharing a meal, Sayalina broke the silence. "Jonathan, you must understand the weight of your role. By Terran law, our bond is not merely one of guardianship. You are now head of our household." Jonathan nearly choked on his food. "Wait, what?" Sayalina's gaze was steady. "In our culture, the head of the household is also the protector, the provider, and the partner. We are bound to you as your wives." The room fell silent. Jonathan stared at the sisters, his mind racing. Wives. How was he supposed to navigate that? Ziri broke the tension with a laugh. "Don't look so scared, Jonathan. We don't bite." She grinned, flashing sharp teeth. "Much." Jonathan groaned and buried his face in his hands. This was going to be a long, complicated journey. Chapter 3. A Pact of Unlikely Partners. It had been 3 weeks since Nathan Steele found himself entangled in the strange customs of the Zerothian people. His alien friend, Cardal, had tragically passed, leaving Nathan the unprepared heir to an inheritance that included Cardal's 3 younger sisters. According to Zerothian law, this inheritance wasn't just material, it came with responsibilities and, apparently, marriage contracts. It was a situation Nathan still struggled to grasp, but his commitment to honoring his late friend's memory was unwavering. The Zerothian sisters Ayara, Velsha, and Alnia had begun to integrate into Nathan's home on Earth. Ayara, the eldest of the 3, took a natural leadership role, with her piercing golden eyes often scanning for any hint of weakness in Nathan. Velsha, the middle sister, was a scientist with an insatiable curiosity about Earth's technology. And then there was Alnia, the youngest, who, despite her reserved demeanor, had an artistic talent that surprised Nathan daily. The challenge was clear. Not only did he need to provide for them, but he also had to navigate the expectations of their culture while balancing his own. The sisters' arrival hadn't gone unnoticed by Earth's governments, either. Nathan's small town had suddenly become a hotbed of clandestine surveillance. Governments and private corporations alike wanted to know more about Zerothian biology, culture, and technology. Nathan was caught between keeping the sisters safe and figuring out what kind of life they could all build together. The ceremony. The official acknowledgement of their union, as demanded by Zerothian custom, had been scheduled for this day. Nathan stood in his living room, transformed into a ceremonial hall, with Ayara instructing him on the importance of the ritual. Symbols of the Zerothian culture, shimmering banners, crystalline artifacts, and a strange glowing orb were scattered around the space. "The binding ceremony isn't just symbolic," Ayara explained. Her tone was firm but not unkind. "It seals our fates together under Zerothian law. You'll need to recite the vows flawlessly, or it'll be considered invalid." Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "No pressure, right?" Velsha smirked from the corner, tinkering with one of her gadgets. "If you fail, Ayara might declare a duel to decide your worth." Nathan's eyes widened, and Ayara sighed. "Velsha, stop tormenting him." "Nathan, the ceremony's importance is genuine, but no one's going to duel you. Just focus." The ceremony began as twilight fell. A small gathering of curious neighbors peered from their windows, watching as the living room radiated with an ethereal glow. The vows were spoken, their meanings foreign but deeply resonant. As Nathan completed his recitation, the glowing orb emitted a brilliant light, signaling the bond's acceptance. It was official. He was now part of their family, for better or worse. New challenges. The days following the ceremony brought a mix of tension and harmony. While Ayara took on the role of enforcer, ensuring Zerothian customs were upheld, Velsha and Alnia began exploring Earth's culture with childlike wonder. Velsha's experiments sometimes bordered on reckless, like the time she disassembled Nathan's microwave to see how it functioned. Meanwhile, Alnia's attempts to paint Earth landscapes often left her exasperated at the chaotic colors of Earth's skies. "I don't understand," Alnia said one evening, holding up a half-finished painting. "How does the sky change from blue to orange to pink in one day? It's so inconsistent." Nathan chuckled. "That's the beauty of it. It's never the same, but it's always beautiful." Alnia's antennae twitched as she considered his words. Perhaps there is merit in chaos. The threat of exposure. The harmony was soon disrupted when a black SUV appeared outside Nathan's home one evening. A man in a crisp suit knocked on the door, introducing himself as Agent Carson from an unspecified government agency. "We're aware of your guests," Carson began, his smile thin and calculated. "And we'd like to ensure their safety. Cooperation with us would make that much easier." Ayara's golden eyes narrowed. "Nathan, who is this?" Nathan stepped forward, his voice steady. "Agent Carson, my friends are under my protection. Unless you have a warrant, you're trespassing." Carson's smile faltered. "This isn't just about you, Mr. Steele. These aliens represent a potential shift in global dynamics. We need to know everything. And by we, you mean people who'd exploit them." Nathan shot back. "You're not getting anything." The tension hung thick as Carson eventually left, his parting words a thinly veiled warning. Solidarity. That night, Nathan gathered the sisters. "We need to lay low for a while. They're not going to stop coming." Ayara placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll fight if we must. You've taken on more than you should have, Nathan, but you're not alone." For the first time, Nathan felt the weight of his responsibility lighten. Together, they began preparing for the challenges ahead. Chapter 4. Alliance in the Shadows. A visitor from beyond. The following morning, an unexpected arrival added another layer of complexity to their lives. A Zerothian diplomat, Caltherin, appeared in the town, his towering presence unmistakable. Unlike Cardal's easygoing nature, Caltherin exuded authority. "Nathan Steele," Caltherin began, his voice resonating like distant thunder. "The Zerothian Council has taken an interest in your unique situation." Nathan crossed his arms. "Let me guess, you're here to take them back." Caltherin's antennae twitched. "Quite the contrary. They are your responsibility now. But you must prove yourself worthy of their trust and the Council's support." The sisters exchanged wary glances. Caltherin explained that Nathan would need to demonstrate his capability to protect them in an upcoming Trial of Unity, a Zerothian tradition meant to solidify familial bonds. The Trial. The Trial of Unity was a series of challenges designed to test Nathan's resolve, adaptability, and willingness to embrace Zerothian values. Over the next week, the sisters trained him relentlessly. Ayara drilled him in Zerothian combat techniques, while Velsha created simulations to prepare his mind for unexpected scenarios. Alnia's role was to teach him patience through her art, an exercise that frustrated Nathan more than anything. "This isn't just a test for you," Ayara reminded him. "It's a test for all of us. Our bond must be undeniable." The Day of Reckoning. The trial took place in a secluded Zerothian enclave, hidden deep in Earth's wilderness. The first challenge was physical. Nathan had to navigate an obstacle course designed to mimic Zerothian terrain. Despite his initial stumbles, he pushed through with grit. The second challenge tested his intellect. Velsha's teachings paid off as Nathan deciphered a complex Zerothian puzzle, earning nods of approval from the observing council members. The final challenge was emotional, a simulated scenario in which he had to choose between his own safety and the sisters'. Without hesitation, Nathan chose them, his decision sealing the council's verdict. Recognition. At the trial's conclusion, Caltheron addressed Nathan. You have shown strength, intellect, and loyalty. The council acknowledges your bond and offers its blessing. Nathan glanced at the sisters, their expressions a mix of relief and pride. For the first time, he felt like he belonged to something greater than himself. A new beginning. With the council's approval, Nathan and the sisters returned home, their bond stronger than ever. While challenges still loomed, from Earth's governments to interstellar politics, they faced them as a united front. Nathan had inherited more than he ever expected, but in doing so, he'd found a family worth fighting for. Chapter 5. Bridging Two Worlds. The first morning after inheriting the sisters, who were now, by their laws, his wives, was a whirlwind of cultural misunderstandings. Marcus awoke to find himself surrounded by an array of alien delicacies, all prepared by the sisters as part of their tradition to honor a new union. The dishes shimmered with bioluminescent hues, releasing scents that ranged from mouth-watering to utterly confusing. "We hope this pleases you, husband," said Syra, the eldest of the three sisters. Her voice carried a formal tone, but her deep violet eyes betrayed a flicker of nervousness. Marcus rubbed his temples, trying to suppress the rising anxiety. Thanks, Syra. It's just you really don't have to call me that." "But you are," interjected Zevna, the most outspoken of the trio. Her silver-tinted skin seemed to glisten under the morning light as she tilted her head in confusion. "The ritual cannot be undone. To us, you are bound." "Yeah, about that," Marcus began, standing awkwardly amidst the ornate dining setup. "Earth has pretty different customs. Marriage isn't usually mandatory, and it's definitely not this fast." Rinna, the quietest of the three, stepped forward, her pale blue features softening. "We understand this is strange for you, but the laws of our people are clear. You accepted Tinar's last will, and with it our care. To refuse would be dishonorable." Marcus's shoulders slumped. He couldn't dishonor Tinar's memory. The alien had been his closest friend and, in many ways, the reason Marcus had survived his crash landing on Vkath prime years ago. But this? Marriage? He had no idea how to navigate this minefield of interstellar customs. "Okay, look," he said, trying to sound diplomatic, "let's just take things slow. I need to understand your culture, and you'll need to understand mine. Deal?" The sisters exchanged glances before nodding in unison. "Deal," they said, though the words sounded slightly alien in their accents. Later that day, as part of his promise to learn about their culture, the sisters took Marcus to the Hall of Histories, a vast crystalline structure that housed the lore of their people. Floating holograms displayed scenes from ancient battles, serene planetary rituals, and the legal codices that govern their society. "This," Syra explained, gesturing toward an illuminated scroll suspended in midair, "details the laws of bonding. Once bonded, both parties share mutual responsibilities: protection, trust, and the preservation of lineage." Marcus skimmed the alien text, his translator implant doing its best to keep up. "Wait, what does preservation of lineage mean?" Zevna smirked. "It means children." Marcus choked. "Whoa, let's not get ahead of ourselves." Even Rinna couldn't suppress a small smile. "Do not worry. There is no urgency. We simply wanted you to understand the expectations." "Great," Marcus muttered, "because I'm already feeling the pressure." A tense encounter. As the group exited the hall, a figure clad in dark armor blocked their path. His presence exuded authority and menace. Marcus recognized him as one of Tinar's rivals, Lord Vezric. "You," Vezric growled, pointing a clawed finger at Marcus. "You think you can claim what was Tinar's? His wealth, his titles, his wives? You disgrace his memory." Syra stepped forward, her tone icy. "Vezric, you insult our union and our late brother's wishes." "Stand down," Vezric sneered. "The council will hear of this. An outsider has no place among us." Marcus squared his shoulders, forcing himself to meet the alien's gaze. "I didn't ask for this. But I'll honor Tinar's wishes, whether you like it or not." Vezrik's eyes narrowed, and without another word, he disappeared into the crowd. Chapter 6: A Bond Tested. The tension with Vezrik left Marcus uneasy, but the sisters insisted they move forward with their day. They brought him to their shared residence, a sprawling estate filled with flora that glowed faintly in the evening. Inside, Marcus noticed small touches that reminded him of Tinar: a hollow frame of their adventures, his favorite drinking vessel, and even the strange instrument he'd always been trying to teach Marcus to play. "He cared for you deeply," Rinna said softly, noticing his gaze linger on the hollow frame. Marcus nodded.
"Yeah."
"He was like family. Which is why I want to do this right, for him and for you." Learning each other. The days that followed were filled with mutual learning. Marcus taught the sisters about human customs, from casual greetings to the concept of personal space, which they found particularly amusing. In turn, they showed him how their bond extended beyond mere tradition. Through shared meditation rituals, they revealed their telepathic connection, a link that Marcus, to his surprise, began to feel faint traces of. "It is because you are one of us now," Syra explained during one such session. "The bond grows stronger with time." Marcus wasn't sure how he felt about that. While the idea of being connected to them was comforting, it also made the responsibility he'd inherited feel even heavier. The first test. Trouble came sooner than expected. A summons arrived from the High Council, demanding Marcus's presence to justify his claim. The sisters assured him it was a formality, but the unease in their voices suggested otherwise. The council chamber was an imposing space, its walls adorned with holographic displays of the galaxy and its many worlds. Seated in a semicircle were the council members, their gazes piercing as Marcus entered. Vezrik was there, of course, a smug expression on his face. "State your case, human," one of the elders intoned. "Why should we accept you as the inheritor of Tinar's legacy?" Marcus took a deep breath, the sisters standing resolutely by his side. "I may not be one of you," he began, "but Tinar trusted me. He believed in me. I'm not here to take advantage of his legacy. I'm here to honor it." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Vezrik stepped forward, sneering. "Words mean nothing. He isn't proven." The elder nodded. "Then let him prove himself. A trial of unity shall decide his worth." Marcus's stomach sank. Trial of what now?" Syra's expression hardened. "It is a test of both physical and mental resolve," she whispered. "We will guide you." Marcus glanced at the sisters, their determination giving him strength. "All right then," he said, squaring his shoulders. "Let's do this." Chapter 7: The Cultural Binding. The first morning after inheriting the sisters, Garrett woke up in the unfamiliar yet luxurious quarters of the late Eric's, his alien friend. The room's architecture blended smooth, organic curves with faintly glowing panels, a mix of form and function he was still getting used to. Today, Garrett had to face something he had been avoiding since the reading of Eric's will: the binding ceremony. Eric's 3 sisters, Kyla, Tiran, and Syl, waited for him in the common hall. Each of them radiated a unique energy, Kyla with her regal poise, Tiran with her sharp wit and sly smirks, and Syl, the youngest, whose quiet demeanor masked a surprising intensity. All 3 wore flowing garments adorned with iridescent patterns that seemed alive, subtly shifting with their movements. The sight was mesmerizing, but it only deepened Garrett's anxiety. As he approached them, Kyla stepped forward, her expression calm but firm. "You slept well?" she asked, her voice carrying the lilting cadence of their native tongue. Her fluency in universal standard made her sound almost human. Garrett hesitated. "As well as anyone could after everything." "Good," Tiran interjected, her golden eyes narrowing with amusement. "Because today we bind." Wait, Garrett said, holding up his hands. "I'm still trying to process all of this. I didn't agree to, well, marriage." "You didn't have to," Syl spoke for the first time, her voice soft but resolute. Eric's invoked the law of succession. "It's not about what you want. It's about what's required. Required for what? He demanded. I didn't sign up to play house. Kyla's gaze hardened. Required to protect us. Our family's status. Our rights. Our survival. Without a recognized bond mate, we'd be vulnerable, politically, socially, and even physically. Garrett exhaled sharply. The weight of their words crushed any lingering thoughts of escape. This wasn't just about him. It was about responsibility to his deceased friend, to these women, and perhaps to something greater than himself. All right, he said finally. Tell me what I need to do. The binding ceremony took place in the heart of Eric's estate, under a crystalline dome that refracted sunlight into cascading rainbows. A small gathering of dignitaries and family allies had assembled, murmuring among themselves as they watched the proceedings. Garrett's discomfort grew as he realized just how public this moment was. Tyron smirked at him as they stood before the officiant, a tall figure draped in ceremonial robes that shimmered like liquid silver. Nervous? Terrified, he muttered back. The officiant began to speak in the native tongue, the words flowing like a song. Garrett only understood snippets, references to unity, obligation, and trust. At specific intervals, he and the sisters were required to exchange vows. Each sister placed a hand over his heart, their unique energy flooding him like a wave of warmth. When it was Syl's turn, she hesitated for the briefest moment. Her silver eyes met his, and in them, he saw vulnerability. Do you accept this bond? She asked, her voice trembling ever so slightly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he considered the gravity of the moment. I do, he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. As the ceremony concluded, the officiant touched a device to each of their wrists, creating a faint glowing mark, the symbol of their binding. The dignitaries erupted in applause, but Garrett could only think about how drastically his life had changed. Chapter 8. The Challenges of Unity. The first week of their marriage was a whirlwind of adaptation. Garrett quickly realized that his new role wasn't just ceremonial. As their bond mate, he was expected to participate in their daily lives, help manage their family affairs, and represent their interests in broader society. The sisters, though bound to him, remained enigmas. Kyla spent most of her time dealing with political allies and enemies, her sharp mind and commanding presence making her the natural leader of their household. Tyron seemed to delight in teasing Garrett, but beneath her sarcasm lay a keen intelligence that she used to manage the estate's finances. Syl, on the other hand, remained elusive, often disappearing into the estate's extensive gardens or locked away in her workshop. One evening, Garrett found himself alone with Kyla in the estate's library. She was poring over a holographic document, her brow furrowed in concentration. Do you ever stop working? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. She glanced up, her expression softening slightly. Not when so much is at stake. What exactly is at stake? He pressed. You keep talking about protection and survival, but I don't understand the full picture. Kyla sighed, closing the document. Our family's influence has been dwindling for years. Eric's death weakened us further. Without a bond mate, we'd be seen as easy targets. Predators would circle, waiting to take what little we have left. Garrett nodded slowly. So I'm a shield. You're more than that, she said, her tone unexpectedly gentle. Your partner, if you choose to be. Meanwhile, Tyron decided to give Garrett a crash course in estate management. She dragged him into the sprawling office, where holographic projections displayed endless streams of data. This is our budget, she explained, pointing to a particularly grim-looking chart. And this is why you can't afford to mess up. No pressure, then, he muttered, trying to keep up as she rattled off numbers and strategies. Despite her teasing, Tyron's dedication was evident, and Garrett couldn't help but admire her. Syl remained distant, but Garrett's curiosity eventually got the better of him. One afternoon, he found her in the garden, tending to a strange, bioluminescent plant. That's beautiful, he said, approaching cautiously. She glanced at him but didn't respond immediately. It's called a soul flare. Eric's gave me the seeds years ago. Garrett crouched beside her. You miss him, don't you? She asked, her voice tinged with sadness. Every day, he admitted. I just hope I'm doing right by him. For the first time, Syl smiled. You're trying. That's more than I expected. As the days turned into weeks, Garrett began to find his footing. The sisters, though vastly different, shared a bond that he was slowly becoming a part of. They still had a long way to go, but for the first time, Garrett felt a spark of hope that perhaps this unconventional family could work. And as he looked at the glowing mark on his wrist, he realized that he didn't just inherit responsibility. He inherited something far more profound, a chance to build something meaningful.